not a typical immersive sim, and it's just making you want to explore. It's like you need to explore, you need to find these resources, find these health stations, and keep them jogging them in.
Yeah, it's really good point.
One of the interesting things, I'm sort of jumping away a bit, that Tom says with the looping stuff is it lets you get away with some certain mechanics. And one of the systems that I think, see if I can tease it out and you can guess what it is, that's like one of the really best systems in my mind.
Is it fishing?
No, it's not fishing.
You and your bloody fishing.
In before the fishing episode, that's all I'm saying.
You're listening to Rules of Play, a game development podcast for anyone wanting industry insight, deep dives on games, and casual conversation.
I think it's fun.
It still cracks me up at the first episode. Tom's like, and we're starting now.
I actually spoke to
we're
people.
doing it again. I've just realised we're recording again. Sorry.
I spoke to people and they said that bit was actually quite funny.
That's what it was.
Like, it's obviously your first episode because after that, we go to start the topic and I just stop talking for like 2 seconds. Everyone just stops talking for like 4 seconds.
Amazing.
We are still amateurs, but we shall get there.
Exactly.
Of
Yeah,
course.
I mean, this stuff is kind of the hardest stuff. Is the transitioning from casual conversation to casual conversation that you're recording.
Yeah,
It feels
it's
very
like
odd.
it's like having casual conversation with your pals, and then having casual conversation with your pals when your mum is behind you. Like,
That's true. We were talking to Emma though, and she said it sounds great because it sounds like you're just having a chat with your mates. And I was like, that's what we're going for.
The
Kind of
goal,
what
wasn't
we're
it? Like,
aiming for,
yeah,
so-
that's
Yeah.
like couldn't be more perfect. So sick.
That's
We're not
exactly
mates,
what
so
we
we
want.
boys. I hate you all.
That's true.
No, you're right. We are the worst of
Acquaintances.
friends. This is actually a punishment that was set up for us to do this podcast.
I feel like I'm stuck in purgatory.
It's a team bonding exercise.
Why?
Well, on that, hello. Welcome to our team building exercise. This is Rules of Play. I'm Matt. That's Jack, Tom, and Adam. How are you all doing? How is everyone? Solid
Yeah,
silence.
pretty good.
Right.
Pretty good.
Nobody wanted to talk over each other.
I don't know. I'm going all right. It's one of those things of finally getting back to a lot of gigs, festivals, and stuff. So I feel like life has found a way almost. We're slowly getting back to somewhat normality. I'm kind of gold.
Did you purposely slip that quote in there? That life finds a way. Jurassic
Park
quote.
quote. No. I almost did wear that shirt today, so be thankful I'm not.
That would have been perfect. You missed a trick there.
It's all lining up with Jurassic Park. I'm doing all right as well. Like you said, life's coming back together. And I've had sort of the last sort of week or so has been busy, but in a good way. You know, when you're like super busy and stressed about things, but for some reason it feels good because you're getting it all done. So
yeah, man.
It's been good. And I've been very all over the place with the games that I've been playing at the moment. I've had a purge through different bits and bobs on the Xbox Game Pass at the moment. Just trying to find lots of different things. Like I talked to you about it a couple of weeks ago, was this sort of racing game on it called Art of Rally, which is this cool sort of low poly racing game. And it's one of the few ones that I've enjoyed that's quite realistic with its handling. I mean, I still cannot do a race in the rain in that thing. I'm just skidding all over the place because it's like dirt rally trying to like drift around corners and everything. But it's really good. Just check it out.
Sick.
And then West of Dead. That's another thing that I've been playing. What about you guys?
It's been
I was going
definitely.
to say there's only one answer for you two.
Me and Adam got it like a day early, so yeah, we've been smashing that.
It's pretty
Absolutely
sweet.
good.
It's,
I'm assuming that we're going to be doing an episode on it at some point, so we're reserving our feedback, I guess, on it. But
Watch this space for that, yeah. But yeah, it's I don't know. I was trying to talk about it with other people the other day, and I won't obviously get into details here because I know you guys haven't played it as well. But it just does a lot of really simple and quite specific to like the immersive genre things that make it immediately go, oh shit, this isn't your like standard like Dishonored, Deus Ex, type affair. It definitely separates itself quite early on. So yeah, I couldn't recommend it more for fans of roguelikes as well. I think you might be able to get into it, just because of its like thematic time loop hoop thing. Pretty cool. But yeah, that's kind of all I've been doing since like Monday morning.
Yeah, we've been invading each other as well, haven't we, Jack? And that's been going fun.
Well, it's been going very well for me.
It's been going well for one of you from what we've seen.
Which I'm still fuming that, I killed you, and then 5 seconds later, I killed you, and you don't tell anyone.
Where's the evidence? I see no evidence.
Did you record it, Adam?
No, I did not.
Only post the wins. Come on.
Well, then there you go. We only post dubs here on. Rules
so one thing in Deathloop weirdly that I am kind of liking is how they input codes. Like the radial system's actually quite fun. The fact that I can spam my code in the tunnel in like 2 seconds flat.
Well, it's quite. And yet again, I don't want to get too Deathloop heavy, but just because you've said that, then you literally said to me this morning about that over Messenger. You were like, "Oh, it's pretty cool how like the code is just this because it's really easy to input." I'm like, I don't have that code. So I think each player must have like a randomly generated code which they use to access those tunnels.
Yeah,
because mine's completely different now. So I don't know if it's completely random or if there's a set few maybe it dishes out. But
which we should test. I wonder if I give you my code and you invade me and try and access some tunnels.
Oh shit!
Sneaky, cool idea.
We'll give that a go.
We've got on the topic of cool radial systems and mechanics. That is the topic for today. Go have a good segue.
What a segue! What a segue!
I tell you what, this started as a joke, but I think we might be becoming the masters of the segue. I think we're
coming for you, other podcasts.
When do we get to the point where we just have a segue that goes across the screen?
Wherever.
Are you saying that we might need to invent some kind of rules of play mascot scurry across the screen with some kind of like Star Wars transition?
The segue.
I love how just by talking about the segue, we've now ruined the segue completely.
Yeah, that's true. It's right. We'll just cut around this, right? We'll put this at the beginning, and then we'll cut into me saying segue. But yeah, we're going to be discussing mechanics and systems today, and basically sort of a mid-level dive on some mechanics that we think maybe are a bit underrated and ones that we'd like to sort of see more in new games. And how little things can help a lot in some games. I'm happy to go first, unless someone's got their big mechanic they want to big up straight away.
You go ahead, mate.
Yeah, go ahead. So I've got a couple, and I think I'll go with sort of the one that I've had in mind at the moment, which is in Kingdom Come Deliverance by Warhorse Studios. So this came out in 2008. If you don't know, it's sort of a very realistic medieval RPG, and it's really good. I really enjoyed it, and I put a lot of hours into it. It's got some differences that I think some people might not like. If you're used to a fairly traditional sword and fantasy RPG, there's definitely some stuff where they push the realism and it doesn't quite hit the mark. But this mechanic they have for pickpocketing, I think, is the best one that I've seen or played in an RPG. It really sort of simulates that idea of being a pickpocket and taking stuff, and you've got a short amount of time. So the way they work it is you crouch down, obviously, all the classic sneak stuff, and then you hold down the button to initiate the pickpocket. And then the longer you spend holding that down for the initial time is how long you have to pick their pockets. And then you'll have like a marker on the screen that's like red and green, showing how close you are to being seen while you're doing this. So you can like walk behind them, hold the button, trying not to be seen while you gain as much time. And then once you get that, you get a radial UI that's different sections in each of them, and they're like closed pockets, or sometimes you can get perks that show you what's in the pockets. And it takes you a certain amount of time to like tick to each one of these, and then a door icon will be on one of these. So you have to go around and like open the pocket, see what's in them, take them, and then try and make your way back to the door in time to get out. So it's just really good at that idea that you're filtering around in people's pockets. You don't necessarily know what's in them, and then you have to get them out in the right time, otherwise you're seen. and I just felt that I was obsessed with it. I just went around pickpocketing people. I had all the money in the game. I was just selling armor like it was nothing, but I still went around and pickpocketed all of these random people because it was just so much better than the old ones that were doing it. It's normally a sneak up to them, click on inventory, and you just open up the same UI that you're used to having.
Yeah. Interesting.
I remember they had the one in. Sorry, Jack, you go.
That's fine. No, I was about to say, is it with that? Obviously, I haven't played Kingdom Come at all. I've seen bits on it, but I was just saying, is it a case of how does that kind of level across the breadth of the game? Is that kind of always how it is, or how is it kind of?
So that's pretty
challenge
much
the player at any point. Does it ever get harder to do, or?
Well, it gets harder. I would say it probably gets easier as across the game because it's the same as the skills, right? You can level up your pickpocketing skill, and then when you first start doing
skill. Okay.
Yeah, it is scalable, and it's a skill that you have. It's not so it's hard to begin with because your sneak will be bad, so it's hard to go up behind someone and hold the button for enough time to get a really long time to filter around in their pockets.
Yeah.
And then as you level up, initially all of the windows will be closed, and you have to go and click on them, see the item, then take the item, and then go back. Whereas later on you'll have it so that the item's already shown, so you can see, I now see that they've got bread, knife, and then you can work out a path which way around the circle you want to go. So it is quite scaling, and there's sort of a nice mid-level, I think, where you've got enough skill to sort of try and walk up behind people and stay there for a while, and then later on, it's the same as any RPG. You just get really, really the skills just super high, so you can just pickpocket anyone.
Yeah,
I'd say, having played that as well, it's really refreshing to see a system put into place that is like that as well. For like you said, we've got all these other games like the Bethesda games of Skyrim and Fallout, which are literally just walk behind someone, and if you manage to pick their pockets, you just see the inventory. And while you can have interesting interactions through that, such as placing a grenade in someone's pocket and then watching them blow up, which is really, really cool. This one really gives you that feel for actually rummaging around someone's pockets,
pilfering through,
like you said. Yeah, like you said before. And then the other thing I was going to say is, like most skills in Kingdom Come, you are really, really, really bad at it at the start. And I think that's where, like you say, the scale isn't you're okay at everything, but you're worse at some, but you're good at other things. It's like you're bad at everything because it would make sense because you're a peasant boy who's never done this stuff before. So you're really bad at everything, and it's really like the perks that you get and the better you get at it, it's really rewarding to actually go through that journey of doing that. I think there's a really interesting perk you can get, which I can't remember the details of it, but it's something like later on, if you get caught by a member of the opposite sex, they don't ever report you if your charisma is high enough. So it's literally it interacts with not only the thief style systems, but also sort of all of the other type of perk trees as well.
Yeah, they do a lot of the sort of visual narrative in that game as well, where depending on what you're wearing or the state of your clothes is how people interact with you. So if you talk to someone and you're covered in blood and you're in a giant suit of armor, it's really easy to intimidate them. Yeah. But if you're dressed as a nobleman, then it's easier to barter and persuade people to do stuff. So there's a lot of integrated different systems that they have. So
cool.
I think they do some really good stuff in that game. There's some stuff that, like I said, I think is not so intuitive, like the lockpicking, but that's really overshadowed.
Oh yeah, I think we've talked about this before, haven't we? You've kind of mentioned it, but I don't think you've ever fully got into it.
Yeah, so basically they try and do it more accurately to real life, like they've done the other stuff, where it's you on the controller you have both analog sticks, where you push the one lever that holds open the lock clasp, and you have to find the right sweet spot, and then you hold it on the thumbstick on the right sweet spot, and then this one you have to rotate it around in a circle while also matching this one going around in the circle. And it's in fact really hard on my thumbs to trying to push that around. There may have been some settings or something that I could change with it, but I found that quite hard. And it sort of did some different things with the tutorial as well, where the guy gives you a load of lockpicks and he's like, I'm going to show you how to do it. And he tells you how to do it. And then I sat there for 10 minutes just breaking all of these lockpicks over and over and over again. And then I go to click on the chest again and it's like, you're out of lockpicks. And I was like, "What do you mean? I'm in the tutorial and I have infinite lockpicks." And I was like, "No, just
well, so it
using
does absolute hard.
So,
Does hard does you
yeah.
then?
No, it's quite hardcore as a game. Yeah, it literally just does that with the tutorials. It's like, well, you had your chance to try and learn on the job now.
Yeah,
Shit.
it gives
And then you
20...
end up with. Sorry, go on.
So I know you go, mate.
I was gonna say, and then you end up with like some missions later on. I think there's a mission where you there's like a line of missions that are all like to do with thieving and to do with breaking into people's houses and pickpocketing them and stuff. And then there's one later on where you've got to break into like this duke's house and steal a book from his. And it's just nigh on impossible if you just haven't practiced at all. Which is like it would be in real life, which I found really interesting.
But yeah, they do as much as some of that stuff's quite hard to begin with. Like the combat, especially, like to begin with, it's really hard, but they do really well with progression with the player skill, not just in the skills of the character.
Yeah, I think you're kind of seeing by no stretch of imagination like a full mainstream sweep to that. But I think even when you look at what Nintendo did with Breath of the Wild, I think there was a big push for that to be kind of more like player skill based. Like when you try to fight the Lionels in that game, if you go and try and fight one of them, like you're gonna fucking get your ass like handed to you straight away. But by the time you've put like 70 hours into that game, you come up against one of them and you're going to be able to like smash all over it. Yeah, you've got the added abilities from the Divine Beast you can get, but if you just want to interact with the basic mechanics of like attacking, shielding, and dodging, like you'll get so used to doing that. So yeah, it's kind of nice to see like an RPG which is all about obviously like upgrading skills and building our character, still having an element of like just player skill, kind of at the forefront. Cool. Well, that's lockpicking, I guess.
Think lockpicking and just in general their player system. But yeah, I think they do it really great. So play Kingdom Come Deliverance if you like RPGs. That's my plug.
Yeah, I mean, just play that game was an absolute feat anyway. Like the stuff that they managed to do with that game is crazy. Like,
so I was saying, in terms of lockpicking, that seemed like a very much more overcomplicated version than what Bethesda does in like the Fallout and Skyrim. Well, obviously with that one, it's just based on a sweet spot, and if you match it and push it, kind of opens. So at least there's kind of some more skill involved.
I think it's an improvement on that. It's just I think there could have been a better way of doing it physically on the controller.
Oblivion.
I think Oblivion lockpicking is the best. So
it is,
and that is no joke. It's
incredibly abstract, really, when you think of it, but it works really well. Like it's really good gameplay, and the fact that it was like measured in like pins, like it was really cool to see how they weighted difficulty. Like it's an expert lock, like you can't do them yet. Then you finally got your lock picking good enough to do expert locks, like woo! And it was like 4 of them, like oh no.
And then very hard.
That's the thing in Oblivion. You could do them at any skill. You would just basically be really, really hard to do it.
I thought you couldn't access them until
you can.
No, you can still access them. I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
that might be
expert lock at the start.
Might be Fallout lock.
Yeah, I think that's.
Because I know Skyrim allows you to do it, but like that sweet spot's so fucking small.
Oh, okay, maybe I think it's something else.
Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3 is when they say you can't open it.
Because they don't want you to hack and stuff either. It's like Science 50 required to hack.
Yeah, I remember doing the Oblivion locks, like going up to an expert lock and being like, right, I've done like 10 locks here. I'm pretty sure I know how these work. It's like, how many lockpicks have I got left? 50. I'll be fine. I don't need to save beforehand. And then just like at the end of it, just crying, like I've just lost like all my life savings at a casino.
We've all been there when you were trying to break out of prison, like with these that one lockpick you can get in, like, oh come on, and you get out and you're like, oh, there's my chest full of stuff, and then it's just what now though?
Yeah, exactly. It's like okay, cool.
Trying to sneak out of Shaden Hall, like.
I have a constant memory of that game where it's the spoilers, the last like thief mission where you have to go and get the Elder Scroll. I remember that I like did that, thought I was hot stuff, doing all these very hard locks, and then I just got to like 2 lockpicks, and I was like, God damn it! So I have to go through like all of the last like 4 doors, which are all really hard, and I'm just saving before everyone, like clink. Load it up again. Like the original Xbox.
That's the one when you had Don't you have
the
like
rose,
a like?
the rose arrow? That's the dark.
Yeah. Like right, the thing. You have to like shoot it at it. Yeah, that was
Yeah, that's
class.
such a cool idea.
The
And
Phoenix
the
Guild was great.
poison apple and all
The bloody guilds in Oblivion was so good, man.
yeah.
I know we go on about it a lot, and I don't think we've
we're going to become known as the Oblivion podcast at this rate.
Yeah,
I swear we talk about it every single one so far.
Is that a
I
bad
think
thing?
like
No, that's true. That's true.
It will be soon.
Yeah, possibly. But I think that's like the reason why, like if you look at Skyrim and stuff, like the guilds just didn't have those like really cool, memorable moments in like the quest lines. It was always just, you have a big fight with someone. Okay.
I mean, the best one for me
true.
in Skyrim was the companions because of the whole werewolf stuff. With that, I thought that was really cool.
That was okay.
That was very unique to that.
It still felt quick to me. That's what I've always said about Skyrim.
Yeah.
It was always
remember
like journeyman to master in like an hour.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah, that's true. That's true. Because I remember the one in is it Oblivion or is it? Yeah, it is Oblivion, where the Mages Guild consists of you having to get recommendations from every single one in the entire world before you can even start the actual mission of like the Mages Guild, and it was like. Bruh.
I think
like you mentioned that. I don't. Go on, Jet. Go on.
No, I said still to this day, I think it's got my favourite Dark Brotherhood quest, which is the murder mystery.
Oh,
yes.
incredible.
I mean, that's such a well-designed mission, though, isn't it? Like, it's just fantastic.
Great. Across the board. Anyway, on topic.
Yes.
Who's next? Has anyone got that?
Who's throwing?
I've got
I've
got one. I think this is a bit of an underrated system that doesn't get as much recognition as I think it should. It's the social circle system from Vampire, the Don't Nod production, and the basic premise of Vampire is that you wake up as a you're a doctor who's woken up as a vampire and is trying to readjust back into your work as a doctor, whilst also dealing with the affliction of being a vampire. And the story itself is very much like a you're torn between your vampire self and your human self. You're straying further away from being human, and you've got to try and live with that and stuff like that. But the system, the social circle system, bloody hell, try saying that when you're drunk, is really interesting because you basically have districts in London, and each of these districts has key citizens that you can interact with, which are all NPCs, as well as a social pillar who is like the most important person there. But as you go through the game, you can choose to embrace these NPCs who are, and then you gain XP from them. But the interesting thing about it is that the way you can feed from them at any point, really, as long as your mesmerized level is high enough. So that's kind of how they gate you from just killing everyone straight away. But as long as your level is the same as theirs, you can feed from them. But when you do, the district stability goes down, so more like gangs start roaming the streets and things like that, and so it makes it harder for you to actually traverse through and things like that. And the reason why it's so interesting is because you have to. You can get XP from them anytime you drain them, but you can gain significantly more XP from them if you have gained clues about their lives. And the way you do that is by interacting with them, interacting with their friends. So the way you gain more XP is to get to know them. And you as a player is getting to know these characters and being like, this is a really cool character. But now they're full XP, and if I drain them, I will go up 4 levels and become much more powerful.
Right.
So it's a really interesting system.
They're saying you're literally just fattening up your prey.
Yeah,
basically, yeah, that's how you look at it. Yeah. But then if you're a player who likes to interact with NPCs and sort of like understands that, like, there's a lot of characters in this that I'm like, well, I understand their struggle and I don't really want to embrace them now. Should I still do it?
I was about to say, like, was there any times you were doing that when it literally kind of challenged your like reptile gamer brain of like, shit, so, I know the rewards will be amazing, but
meta game,
this character's dead cool. I don't want it.
Yeah, exactly. So there were times because I started that game going, right, I don't care about these people. I don't know them. I'm a vampire. I want to be powerful. And that's why I said to myself, I'm going to play it like that. And then there were times where I'd get to know these people, and there was a really interesting storyline where it was two two characters who were in a relationship together, but they were homosexual. So at the time in London in the 1880s, they would have been shunned, basically.
Yeah.
But we had this really interesting talk about they've come back from the war. One of them's got PTSD. He's looking after the other one, and you find the one who's got PTSD because he's ran off, and you find him in the sewers by himself. So in a position that is completely vulnerable, you can immediately embrace him at that point. And I was like,
properly,
"Oh no, what do I do?" And then I went, "Nah, I'm going to do it." And then I did it. And what happens is it has an impact. When you level up, that night is complete, and you sleep through the day, and you go to the next night, and that's when the impacts happen. So the impact of what I did there, I fed on the guy who was down in the sewers. So his friend who was looking for him went down and found him, and then he goes missing. He just leaves the district, so you can't get him anymore.
So he's just gone
until he comes back. He may possibly come back later.
Cool. That's really
so it's
cool.
it not only brings the district sort of stability down. It also changes where characters are in the world, changes their state, makes some of them more hostile towards you. Things like that. It's really, really cool.
So it is possible to blitz through it as an absolute blood-sucking maniac, but
yeah,
you're
so
probably
as
going
I
to
said,
end up making a real hostile world.
Yeah,
yourself,
and that's what I'm still doing. I'm still sort of playing it as every now and then and going back to it. So they have the mesmerize system, which is how they cap it, so that you gain mesmerize levels as you play through the main story. So that's how they sort of stop you from feeding on everyone. But I'm planning on every time there's a mesmerize that's on the same level as me, I want to feed from them because I want to see what happens if I kill basically everyone here.
Yeah, if you just go.
And one of the main characters is called Dr. Edgar Swan or something like that, and he's the one who saves you from from the pit where you were found. He brings you into the hospital, looks after you, is aware that you're a vampire because he's dealt with other vampires before. And he helps you throughout the whole thing, and then it says mesmerize level 6 for him, and I'm
you can
shit,
get him then.
That means at some point I can kill him, but will I want to?
So
I was like, that's so cool.
Obviously, you've got the reward for killing them as you gain the level up points and everything.
Yeah.
Other than narratively, getting to know this character and stuff, is there any positive of not killing them? I guess it's to not degrade the environment.
So I think it's twofold. There's it's not just the environment that's degraded. So they've got a problem. They address that they've got a problem with gangs in London at this point. And the more social pillars that you bring down, in the social circle of this district, the more sort of the gang takes their place and leaders of this gang takes their place. And then there are hostile areas in the map that are sort of always hostile, but the more you make the district unstable, the more that hostile area expands. So whenever you just walk in, they will start attacking you. And these guys sort of scale up a lot, so it gets harder and harder.
Yeah.
So there's some fights that. Sorry, I've interrupted you 4 times.
There's
some fights that I've just completely avoided because I'm not going anywhere near this guy. He's like a brute. They've got characters who are priests, war priests at one point. These guys who are have crosses and everything because they were aware of the vampire scourge in London, and they're shining it at you and stuff. And I'm I don't want to get involved in any of that. But I'm making it worse for myself by making myself more powerful. Right. So although the levels are sort of the same, it's still harder.
Yeah, that's cool. There's constantly scaling based on your decisions, and it's not a direct positive to not kill them because it's based on the negative. So it's cool.
I think plus you lose opportunities for side quests and things like that as well. Obviously, you either lose that character who gives you a side quest, or you lose someone who was close to them because they've ran off or because they've got captured or something like that.
It's the dilemma in Dark Souls with when someone's got a cool armor set or a cool weapon. Do I kill them to see if I can get that
weapon? It's kind of like
a guy.
Yeah, the whole thing of it. It's I think the first thing that comes to mind when you're about the gangs and stuff coming to the streets, it kind of reminds you what Arcane did with Dishonored, right? If you play it really high chaos and you're murdering people, it worsens the rat infestations with the plague because there's more bodies to feed on, and it's also a little bit remember the thing in BioShock where little sisters when you can save them or harvest them. Yes. But it was always it never really made sense to ever kill them because you didn't get as much directly at first, but you'd always end up getting more if you just always
Yeah.
rescued them. It would take longer
Yeah.
because you'd have to wait for them to leave stuff for you, but it was always worth your time. So it feels like it's taking both of them and somehow kind of making them better and more cohesive in a
Yeah.
way.
Well, this is why I was saying that it's. I consider it to be better than the Dishonored Chaos system, to be honest.
Yeah. Mhm.
Even though that gets more recognition for its system, because to me the Chaos system in Dishonored is a kind of a switch. It's like
Yeah, it's very binary.
you keep causing enough chaos, and then at this point something changes.
Yeah.
Whereas with this one, it's like, well, things can go up and down based on what you do and based on who you interact with, and all of these other factors that come into play. It's clear that Don't Nod were like very clear about what the loop is, and the loop is this social circle system.
Yeah.
And they've built it so well. I think it's really well crafted.
It's another side of that like vampire part as well. You know, it's the same. Normally, vampire games are kind of like, yeah, I'm the powerful one, and then you live with your choices of killing people. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's why I like it so much as well, is because it ties into not just the gameplay or the environments, it ties into the narrative as well. It makes sense as to why this stuff is happening.
Yeah.
Because you're struggling with becoming a monster at the end of the day.
Yeah. Like going back to the chaos system, the issue that I also have with that is that it's kind of like a punishment for even the games. Like you got to play stealth, but it gears half of its powers towards aggressive play.
Yeah.
But if you dabble into that aggressive play, it's like, oh, okay, we're going to punish you by making the world harder. Areas get harder later on because they put more traps up and things like that. So like I think that's a nice contrast with Deathloop, is that there is no punishment for going loud and aggressive, which is what I fucking absolutely love.
Yeah. I mean, like, kind of what you said about Deathloop there, Adam, like, I was speaking to someone about it on Twitter the other day. They were asking, like, just my kind of takeaway thoughts for a couple of hours with it. And, you know, I think we spoke before in the past about From Software and their introduction to the parry mechanic in Bloodborne, and how that was, like, obviously, I say obviously, I think we all think it's obvious that it's a direct, you know, response to how do we stop people playing, you know, like really like shielded up? How do we really encourage aggressive play? And it feels like a lot of Deathloop's design is addressing those things which people were put off with Dishonored. Because I know our friend Dan, I'm pretty sure his like main like uni like dissertation type paper was about that in Dishonored. Was saying like a lot of the cool mechanics of the game and the fun mechanics are all the ones you kind of get told are negative to use. So when Deathloop comes about, it's just, all right, here's this. There's no real punishment for playing it like a bloodthirsty murderer and stuff. In fact, it's encouraged, if anything. And everything gets reset in a day anyway, so it's just bang. Like if you
I think that's the reason
it gets reset. It says, all right, cool.
That's the reason why it like works with that, right? Though I mean, obviously, I've not played it yet, so correct me if I'm wrong here, but the inclusion of the narrative being it's a loop every single day means that you can encourage that kind of behavior because it's at the end of the day it's reset.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other really good side of it as well. Yet again, I know we said we wouldn't go to a Deathloop tangent. I feel like we're going on. But something what someone mentioned as well the other day to me was that if you look at the immersive sim genre, where they have these sprawling levels and it is very much like, ooh, can I do this? Oh, that thing works. Awesome. And then there's normally a stealth element. If you go back to Thief, Deus Ex, it's always been at their DNA. And it's like, shit, I've been caught. Like, I'll hit, like, you know, just quick load. I'll quick load here. Nice. Deathloop has no such thing as a quick load and quick save system. It's just live with it.
You have to
so when action kicks off, it's like, exactly, it's like, oh crap, doing that. And because you've got this thing of where if you get killed each run, you've got essentially 3 lives. And it's like if you lose one, you like your body time doesn't rewind. So events you've done still have occurred. So if you go into a room, kill 7 people, and the 8th person kills you, you rewind back to like where you came into the room, but what you did still happened. So it kind of gives you like a bit of like you can go again. Like the status quo is kind of being reset, but not properly. Yeah. So it just feels that there's a lot of things done to kind of go, right, you know, we know that thief can be quite hard if you get caught 20 minutes into a mission. So, and especially because the areas you go into in that game, you start learning them a lot more. Like, it's not like one and done, like in pretty much every immersive sim ever. It's like, oh crap, I've been here before. It's nighttime now and it's snowing, but I know that there's a hole in this wall here that could get me into here. And you start like you know, when you see those videos, I can't remember that YouTuber's name, but that YouTuber who does those ridiculous Dishonored runs when he's like, he gets like a whale oil canister at the start of the level, he throws it up, he sprints, pauses time, and like it blows 3 people up, he's shooting a guy over there, and he just it's like I've found myself starting, not obviously know any of that crazy shit, but like I've started playing like I know where these NPCs will be, that I can just run, like blink over there and do all this stuff. So
this is in before Jack's definitely montage career coming out.
I can't wait to see that. Yeah.
Well, one other major difference that I have also noticed in the obviously in games like BioShock and Prey and Dishonored is that you have inventory, health, and mana consumables. In Deathloop, you don't actually have them.
Yes.
You have health like scattered around that you can pick up, and you have health stations, and your mana regens on its own, which just ties into that it's not a typical immersive sim, and it's just making you want to explore. It's like you need to explore, you need to find these resources, find these health stations, and keep them jogging on in.
Yeah, it's really good point.
One of the interesting things, I'm sort of jumping away a bit, that Tom says with the looping stuff is it lets you get away with some certain mechanics. And one of the systems that I think, I'll see if I can tease it out and you can guess what it is, that's like one of the really best systems in my mind.
Is it fishing?
No, it's not fishing.
You and your bloody fishing.
In before the fishing episode, that's all I'm saying. But you know, it's a really good system, but it's only possible if you have like a looping death is a thing in the game, and it was so good that
the
they
Nemesis
copyrighted
system.
it. Yeah, exactly. Winner, Adam, Nemesis system.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? I think you've seen a lot of those. Like you've got like the Shadow of Mordor games. You've got like Hades, which is obviously like a huge like hit like last year. And they've all got, whether, you know, thematically it's kind of different. Yeah, it's not a time loop. Yeah, he's invincible or he can resurrect or something. But getting rid of you're playing a video game, you've died, right, reset, and everything resets. Like, actually making that part of the game is really, really cool. I guess Death Stranding did it a little bit, not crazily. But
they had a really interesting way of doing it.
Like kind of alive, and like even Dark Souls has had that thing, right? Like it's
the thing is
running to a way, like
it's kind of like corpse running in Death Stranding because you've got the repatriate stuff where you have to return back to your body, but it makes sense in that again because Kojima's thought about like I don't want he wrote in about how the bodies would like if you actually killed someone in that game, they would void out and would cause issues. So it would mean that you would have to have characters that therefore can't actually die. And it feels like you kind of wrote yourself into a little bit of a corner, but it works. So it works fine. I don't know whether he wrote that first and then did the mechanic or whatever came, but it works fine. Like
that's game development for you, writing in a reason why the story works, or writing a story reason why the mechanic works.
When we obviously inevitably get Hideo Kojima on, we'll ask him.
Well, I did want to quickly interject. It's not on the big surprise that I managed to get Hideo to hit. I can't talk. I'm that excited about the prospect. No, I thought I'd describe what the actual Nemesis mechanic is as we're talking about looping things. And I don't know. I think a lot of people played Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War, the Lord of the Rings games, but I don't know how mainstream they got. But basically, it was sort of because when you die in that game, you sort of just teleport back and you resurrect yourself because you have this immortal elf in you. Is the sort of story behind that part of the game. When you
could have worded that a bit better, Matt. Sorry.
Sorry. I'm not going to retake. I'm going to carry on. You've thrown me off now. You've ruined me.
Sorry.
When you die to any minion in that or any enemy in that game, they then get recruited higher in the ranks, and you get to see this whole like screen of all of the enemy captains, and you can go and hunt them and stuff. And then you can die to like a slave orc, and then when you die to him, he then gets recruited to a captain, and he's like part of that system of silhouettes that you can see. And then if he then kills you again, he gets promoted again to like a warlord, and he gets a lot bigger, and he changes his aesthetic, and they have a load of like unique lines to them like reoccurring and killing you. And it's just super interesting, that feedback of you dying, and then and I found myself like purposely going to get killed by a certain creature so that I could then see how they like interacted in the stack. And then they can you can go and hunt one of the captains because you want to go kill him or you want to recruit him in Shadow of War. And then someone who's killed you and gone up the ranks could have killed him as like a vengeance thing. So it's super interesting. That
you
really,
you could put plants, couldn't you, in as well, like spies, that you could corrupt people and then put them back into like the ranks, and they could kind of climb and turn everything they like against each other and stuff. That was cool.
Yeah.
You could also I know how it's called the Nemesis system, but actually one of them did actually get pitted as your nemesis, who would keep returning.
I love those ones.
Till you do like a big finale at the end where you actually you could kill him like 6 times throughout the story, and then you'll get this big fight at the end, and he'll still rock up, and you're like where have you been?
Yeah, wasn't he like literally covered? He looked like Frankenstein's monster, right? All these like body parts stitched back on.
Well, that's the thing about it. What I thought was really interesting about the Nemesis system is you would have orcs that would come up to you and start fighting you, and if you did something such as blow up a fire barrel near them, it would burn them and they'd run away. And then when they come back, their name would be like Grognak the Burnt. And I'm like, that is so cool. This guy is now... Yeah, they've had like a little things being like afraid of fire. Like they've got a fear of fire now because of the direct actions. Because some of those that is amazing because it just allows you to not only play the actual game and get the actual Lord of the Rings lore it went through, but you went through your own individual story that was completely unique to you, and that is just it's incredible. I can see why they patented it.
Yeah, because when a normal orc gets promoted, they get assigned special strengths and weaknesses as well, don't they?
Yeah.
Some of we're immune to stealth headshots, we're scared of beasts.
Yeah.
Beastmaster, loads of random different strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah. You could have ones that were both of those, couldn't you?
Yeah.
That were I'm a Beastmaster, but I'm also scared of beasts. It's
what? Yeah. I think to me that would be, if you were to design my ultimate game, it would essentially be Hitman, what Square Enix have always done, especially the ones from 2016 onwards. Elements of Hitman, just because those levels are incredible. The opportunities and ways to take people out is just incredible on each level, and you've got the nice replayability loop of it. I think with the Nemesis system built into it, so if there was multiple targets on maps and stuff, and it was just oh, you've done that, this guy's gone now, and he's going to come back and he's going to be suited up for the next one. I think you'd have to have that that weird supernatural or sci-fi thematic.
Well, this is what we were saying. The problem is that the reason why it works so well is because you've got the narrative reasons for when you die and then come back. Yeah.
That's it, isn't it? So I think it would have to have that, but especially yet again, sorry to mention Deathloop, but it's just on the mind. It's got the invasion multiplayer mode to it, and as good as it is, and it is really fun, to me, I still think the great game of playing with these systems and things would be what happens when there's one target on a Dishonored map, let's say, but there's 3 players trying to go for it at the same time. And you kind of have this Mr. and Mrs. Smith. That's a really weird reference, I apologise. But you have this weird Mr. and Mrs. Smith moment when you're both trying to get the same target, and you're both kind of, whether accidentally or on purpose, trying to fuck each other off. No, you don't. I'm getting the shot. It's someone's going for the shot, and then maybe you've got Dishonored powers, and you're magnetically shifting the bullet away. No, you don't.
Yep.
I just that would be amazing.
There was something I'd say kind of like that, but not really. And this was one that I found mind blowing at the time because it was Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, their multiplayer.
Yeah.
And it was because we had multiplayer games before, but they were always FPSs, first person shooters in COD, and they were very this is what a multiplayer game is.
Yeah, you found
and then Assassin's Creed comes along, and it was you're not directly going against them, but you're both trying to get the same objective, which is to kill this target. Yeah, and I was that is so cool. And you had moments where you could use abilities to blend into the crowd. Or hide from them and things like that, or you could take those out, or just throw a smoke bomb to distract them. and it was just I think that
really
is
fun.
like was one of the most like interesting
Yeah.
takes on the multiplayer game.
Me
for
too.
sure.
It was actually one of the things that I was really kind of sad to see disappear in those games. Because I remember when it came out in Brotherhood, I was at Eurogamer that year, and I must have sat and played it for about an hour and a half, like throughout the day.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, there's no queue, don't go play some more Brotherhood. Like, hell yeah! And we'd sit and just absolutely have each other's lives
It was
on that
so
for a
fun.
bit. Yeah, it's
Yeah, it was so fun.
I think it just was it around for like 2 or 3 games, maybe.
I think so. I think I played it in Brotherhood and then a couple of after, but
I
it
think
just
was
didn't
in
have the
Black.
same.
Yeah.
I think it was in Black Flag. I think I remember
Was it?
being in
Was
Black
it?
Flag.
Yeah.
Think
It'd be
it was.
interesting to see if they
Another-
ever make a revival out, or even a standalone could be
I
quite.
think
Not
they've
saying
gone too far away from it now.
Oh, they have
with
now.
The way that they're
yeah,
doing
for sure.
Assassin's Creed is basically God of War.
Yeah.
Or The Witcher.
saying-
No, sorry, The Witcher.
I'm saying another Ubisoft multiplayer experience I do miss was Spies versus Mercs. So hopefully they bring Splinter Cell
Oh
back.
yeah. Well,
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
I'm gonna do it, boys. Speaking of Splinter Cell, talking about my it's not. I guess it's not necessarily a mechanic. It kind of is. It's more of like a feature, but something I really liked about playing stealth games growing up, because I was kind of obsessed with them, whether it was like Metal Gear, like Thief, or Splinter Cell, was the kind of way that these games would present information to the player about how visible you are to like NPCs. And the Splinter Cell, especially in Chaos Theory, I think the first one it existed, maybe not to the degree, but you had you could always see how light you were at any point and how much noise you were making at any point. So if you were running around and stamping about in under light bulbs, your thing would be right over there, and your sound meter would be as far as it could go at the one side. But if you were completely cloaked in shadow and still, it would be completely the other side of it. And I think that was a natural evolution of it, the light gem from Thief. Which if you haven't played Thief, you pretty much had a 3D asset on your UI, and if it was glowing, it was pretty much you can be seen, getting some shadow. And if you weren't, obviously it wasn't doing it. And I think you saw it in Splinter Cell. It became much more like UI, so it wasn't it was non-diegetic. Is that the right way around? I think it is. And it was straight on UI, so you kind of always see it. You weren't really struggling with that. What's really interesting is Gloomwood, what's being developed at the minute, which is a Thief spiritual successor. It's taking those ideas of the kind of light meter and especially Thief's light gem, and it's actually mapping it onto the first person character's arms on a ring. So you can you have to literally look at your character's ring on your thumb to actually see it.
Oh, cool! Like the health
So
bar in Dead Space kind of thing.
Yeah,
part
pretty
of the
much.
character.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's really, really diegetic straight on there, which I just think is a really cool feature that it's still kind of getting used. Oh, not nowhere near as much. Even Splinter Cell kind of abandoned it. It pretty much. I think it was Double Agent when they condensed it for the first time. I could be wrong with that though. When it pretty much, instead of the big light meter, it essentially became kind of like Dead Space, and it was a little threat meter on Sam Fisher's back, and it was if it was green, you were kind of good, and you weren't any light, you weren't making sound. But if you started causing a racket and you were in loads of light and stuff, it would be red. So it's
Well, I think that's
kind of interesting how it's
Sorry, sorry to interrupt, Jack. I think that's it's kind of interesting to see how how that evolved, and it became from two things to one thing, right? Where it was light and sound.
Yeah,
they both had meters for that, and then eventually there was sort of just a shift into now we're just going to make it an awareness meter, which is now in anything that has any kind of stealth mechanic has an awareness meter.
Yeah.
Characters will always have things that turn from white to red to white to yellow to red above their heads, or some kind of eye that you see. And there's always some kind of UI, whether it's on screen or like you say, diegetic or non-diegetic. And it's really interesting that it's moved away from the actual specifics of it being light and sound into just if they can see you or not.
But go on, Matt. Go on.
I was going to say that I find I love the how deeply you can go into mechanics and systems and just be really specific on AI notice UI or notice mechanics, stealth notice stuff, and how I was literally going to say, which one do you think is the best AI notice mechanic in a game? I think you probably think it's that light one, but That's
Well,
such a super. You can really dig down into this stuff, and I find it super
but I
interesting.
think kind of what Tom said there. What is really kind of strange is you've gone from games like the original Thief, in which all you had was that gem on your screen, and the rest of it was pretty much, are you running around making a lot of noise? You shouldn't be, and all of that was just reflected purely by audio in game. So if you're running around on like marble floor, your footsteps are like slapping about. But if you're on grass, you're like deathly quiet. And it even had to the point in which you could use grass arrows, like magical grass arrows. You could shoot like the floor, and it would create a patch of grass. So you could literally be like inside a mansion, like shooting grass arrows, and be like, "Hut!" I like slowly sneaking behind someone. And then you've gone from
it's just a bush.
Yeah, exactly. And you'd have like no UI elements on enemies being like, oh my god, I'm aware of the player. It was all just done through audio. So you'd be sat there, and it'd be like, what's that? Oh, nothing. And they'd get on what they were doing. I like now,
noises.
everything in games, it's like you said, it's that traffic light system almost. Like, and it's like, no,
it's basically become a universal standard at this point. Like, that's the cool thing about games is they exist, but also that you can completely change all of that stuff, and the player will, move along with that system.
Yeah, if something becomes like popular enough, it'll.
Yeah. I think it'd be hard to go back though. That's kind of what I'm saying. I think the days of being able to do something like Thief, where it was pure audio driven, I don't think you'd be able to do that anymore. I think even like accessibility point of view as well. Like,
Death Stranding kind of had it with the audio, but it was also like distance based as well. Because are you thinking about the BTs?
It had those weird like vignettes, so didn't it? If you were kind of getting zoomed and things were red and stuff.
Oh yeah, it did have those as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the more interesting ones that we go on that isn't an awareness meter, but is sort of like in attune to the light or sound, or in this case visual, is the camo system in Metal Gear Solid 3.
Oh.
And the more camo you have with the environment, the less likely enemies are to see you. And I think that is perfect.
Yeah.
And it had the little strip in the top corner of what camo you're wearing,
and
plus with the percentage. Good.
Which so kind of again tying that is what we've been saying as well about the kind of going back to like Thief and Splinter Cell. You saw what even Kojima tried to do to streamline number 3's camo system.
Yeah.
And with number 4, it was all right. Well, here's it for all intents and purposes. Here's a magical suit that if you're just sitting on a certain type of terrain for like 3 seconds, you'll camouflage like completely on it. And if you go against the wall, you'll just turn into that camouflage, whatever that brickwork
is. Exactly.
And then you also had a sound meter that went around you, if I remember correctly. It was kind of like it generated sine waves. So if you were dead still, it was just like a flat circle. But then it started like wobbling if you're going too much. Yeah, the Octocamo. Yeah.
I'm still waiting for my stealth game that lets me have an ability where I turn into a walking bush. Saying, where's that move?
Fortnite. It's literally a piece of...
I was going to say, isn't that in Fortnite?
It literally is in Fortnite. It's great.
Can you turn into a bush?
Yeah, you can literally carry
I just thought one. Divinity, yeah. You can do it in that.
Can you actually?
Yeah, when you sneak in that, what it does is it automatically... This is actually a really interesting way of looking at it. It's one button to sneak, and when you do it, what it does is it immediately changes your character into a what's it called? I was going to say static mesh, but that's such a like game dev thing. Into an object from that environment that like makes sense within that environment. So if you're in a forested area, it goes boop, and you turn into a bush, and then like walk around as a bush. If you're in the harbour, it changes into a box or something like that. It's really cool actually.
It's kind of like a little bit prop hunty in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it plays on that like generated. It plays on the kind of silliness of it at that point. Because
for sure, yeah.
Divinity is a game that's very much like, it doesn't take itself too seriously, so that's why it works completely well.
Yeah, exactly. It's all contextual, isn't it? For sure.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Well, we're going to try talking about Sekiro, I believe, again.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say what was the stealth notice thing in Sekiro, because I can't remember them having like a visual tell above the characters.
Adam would be the best one to talk about this, but I don't know if he's back yet.
I think he is. Well, we're going to say that he is, and if he's not, we're going to continue talking. Hello?
Hello.
We can kind of hear him. No, we can't.
Never mind. I think
I'm
it's
not
very
sure what it
delayed or
was.
something.
I seem to remember that there was that nice, like, proper, like, Japanese, like, instrumental sting that happened if you
Well,
got
they had the
caught.
kanji above, but that was for like danger, and that was for
No, I mean, like, the
specifically in
actual,
combat.
like, audio. There's, like, an audio sting that kind of happened. But I don't remember, if there was,
They
like,
had
the...
the red dot behind them to do like the assassination, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember them. We were saying that you can't get away with not having any UI, but I don't think they had any UI. I
Did
think
they
it
not?
was purely. But I can't remember one.
I can't remember what it was, like, from the top of my head. No, we'll have to look into that.
I mean, the one skipping the Sekiro, the other one that I had, kind of is. I was thinking about like different mechanics that I was like kind of have come through the games and have become more popular as they've come more apparent. And I realized that like combat executions is something. And I was thinking back to Gears of War, and that's. I think Gears of War 1 came out 2006, I think.
Yep,
Gears of
that
War
sounds
1
about
came
right.
out. And I was trying to think of something that had executions before that. Maybe Manhunt. Manhunt was the one that sort of did the whole like animation that you play and
Really
does an
cinematic.
execution.
Yeah, God of War as well, like the visual God of War.
Well, that's the thing. They've become progressively more popular since then, right? You think about Gears of War and it was the curb stop and everything, and that was so. Oh god, that felt so good playing that game, and then it's just become more and more popular in like the shooter and RPG style stuff of having this cinematic kill.
It's like I think in a way, and this could be me just talking absolute crap here, but I feel in a way it's giving the player a bit of like a fighting game like finishing move almost. Do you know what I mean? It gives you that same rush of like, right, I've done a bit of work to kind of get you vulnerable. Now I'm going to essentially do a fatality. Like, and you saw Gears expand on that with number 2. Like every weapon had an execution.
Oh, that was the thing. That was what I was going to get. Like, and then when they expand onto that, and when every single weapon has an execution, and then in multiplayer you can still do them for this like risk reward of like.
It was amazing, especially in the what was the game type when you just had one life? Was it literally called execution?
Yeah, it was literally called execution.
Yeah. Like if you had the bolt shot, the big the big 50 cal sniper, and you executed someone with that. Oh my! It beat any kind of griefing you could do on games at the time. Like if you got executed with a bloody overhead 50 caliber sniper, you were like, oh crap! I need to bloody leave.
The worst ones was getting executed with a heavy weapon because someone else has to down you, and then this guy's just slowly waddling towards you.
Oh no!
Just.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that is quite interesting though, Matt. Yeah, for real, because it does seem to have it did have a much like stronger prevalence in stuff post God of War. Even like you said, mainly in the shooter stuff when it really started to take place. Even Halo added executions at one point, and that's not a game you'd ever think would have them.
I was doing some like brief research into this before this episode. And there is other than Manhunt, there's not really many games that I could find or think of that had executions before Gears of War that were specific about, you press a button when someone's down.
I was about to say when it's... Yeah, because I think those type of things, it would be... Especially when God of War did it, it was a lot more like normally contextual within like boss fights, let's say. You had like the big cinematic camera drawn in.
You could stun them in the old one. You press X to finish.
Exactly.
But even in the old ones, it still did that. Like for the main bosses, it was still like the one I remember the most is Helios, isn't it? Where you rip his head off, it's right at the end of it, and you just press a button, and then you have to keep mashing that button to rip his head off. And I'm like, this is grim, but this is amazing.
Like I think that was like, especially at the time, those first couple of first few, I guess, God of War games, they were always like held as, oh, these are the games that do like QTEs good.
Yeah.
Because what you're seeing is absolutely ridiculous. It's like, oh my god, I'm like tearing an ogre's eyeball out. This is crazy. And it looked cool as hell what you were doing. Where I think I'm going to cause some aggro here. Not with you boys, but I'm sure someone. You look at something like Shenmue, and all that game is really is just like, kind of QTE mini games. And it's what I'm doing doesn't look great. And I think if you can find that thing, it's Kind of you get away
It's
with
one of those things with Shenmue, right? Because it's like I know people who really like Shenmue, and they're probably
Me
going to
too.
be listening to this right now and shouting directly at me.
Me too.
But like people who say like, yeah, but it's about the narrative, and I'm like, yeah, but the narrative's not great in it, is it? Like even like I'm getting outed here, but like it is like you say, it's some weird mini. And I know people had this issue. Even people who liked Shenmue had this issue with the new one. Is that they just felt it's just all it is a game where you walk to a mini game, do a mini game for 20 minutes, and walk to another one, and that's all it is.
That's it, yeah.
And it's just so disappointing because you could do some really interesting things with like that kind of audience. Like you've got so many different like kind of narrative games or more sort of casual games that don't have a load of combat or whatever in. I know Shenmue had some of it, but the majority of their games were about the NPCs having certain routines that they would do. And I think that's really interesting. If you had a town that is fully AI driven, you could do so many interesting things with that. And just to do mini games is a real disappointment.
Yeah, for real. Well, I think even if you look back to just to try to tie this back into what you're talking before about Vampire and Deathloop, if you look at what Nintendo did with Majora's Mask back in the day, like arguably one of the first great games dealing with being stuck in a time loop, and villagers had that. They did set things. You'd have to try shit. My time's running out, and I need to reset the thing again. And I honestly don't think, even to this day, that Majora's Mask. I still think it's criminally underrated by a lot of people. Like it's a really for a Nintendo game following Ocarina of Time. Like it's a very like mechanically rich,
the most anticipated sequel ever.
Yeah, and it don't get me wrong, it bloody delivers, but it's a big like kind of course change. Like it's still very much a Zelda game at its heart, but it deals with some stuff, and it's got like a really harrowing atmosphere and everything to it. But yeah, I think it's possible to kind of bring all that stuff into one thing. But I guess we kind of come full circle in a strange way with that. So
we've almost done a loop. We did it, boys! Yeah,
we are masters of the segue and puns. We have somewhat of a triforce, so we need to figure out what the last one is to complete our podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Triforce.
That is in my mind, a great way to start and finish up the mechanics of different segments. We apologies for having some technical difficulties this episode. I'm sure Adam had many things to bring to that Sakura conversation that he didn't bring. But we are professional, so we carry on.
The show must go on.
And now, the show must go on by ending it. So, hope you all guys enjoy, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for listening, guys. Bye-bye.
Peace.